What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is time to talk some DFS up in this piece, or some such like that. Before we do that, though, I should remind you, if you want to win a 65-inch television and a power station, courtesy of me, technically CBS and the Pick Six Podcast, but it is a 65-inch television giveaway and a power station giveaway. It is a free contest to enter. I don't know what you have to do, but if you go to cbssports.com/pick6giveaway, PICKSIXGIVEAWAY, pick six giveaway, you can enter to win for free a 65-inch television. The giveaway ends October 25th. So if you listen to this podcast on the reg, go get rewarded for having me pumped into your ears every single day with a 65-inch television. And so go check that out. Let's get to the DFS. I don't even know if I was supposed to read that promo or not. Anyway, Heath Cummings, Frank Stampfl joining us today. Frank, first time on the podcast. Thanks for coming on. And people want to see it on youtube.com/pick6. Frank, his entire backdrop is coated in Yankees crap. And not just Yankees crap, but the giant cutout of Derek effing Jeter. What do you do? What is this, a troll job of me? What's going on here?
Yeah, look, this is all I got going for me. I'm a Yankees, Knicks, and unfortunately, Jets fan. So this is literally all I have going for me in life. And hey, man, give some respect to Derek Jeter. He just got the Miami Marlins to the playoffs. So, oh,
Derek Jeter is the single most overrated defender in baseball history, right, Heath?
That's the most overrated fat I've ever seen.
It's hard to like the Yankees if you like any other baseball team. What are you going to do?
No, that's fine. I agree wholeheartedly. If I was not a Yankees fan, I would probably hate them too.
Is that a Michael Jordan situation going on over there? Or is that the John Starks dunk?
Yeah, so that's the John Starks dunk. I actually got an autograph by him in a bar. He was randomly there. I didn't even plan it. It just turned out it was like meet John Starks night in a bar.
I thought you were like walking around with the John Starks poster and you're like, oh, look, John Starks in a bar. Cool.
No, it was like the first day this bar opened. I walk in. John Starks is there. He's signing pictures of himself dunking on the Bulls, and it just so happens Adam Azer has the same exact picture hanging up behind him. We didn't even plan it. It just happened this way.
I bet the Fantasy Football Today podcast or whatever show you guys do together are just delightful to watch. Heath, what's going on, man? How you doing?
It's a weird time, Will. We're trying to figure out who's going to be playing this Sunday, who is actually on the main slate, who's not on the main slate. Sounds like the Steelers and Titans. Good news, if you play regular fantasy on CBS, even if they play Tuesday, that's going to count towards your week 4 production. We'll just extend week 4 one extra day. But they will not be doing that in DFS, and the Steelers and Titans will not be playing on Sunday, so we can scratch that one off the list.
Yeah, they will be playing Monday or Tuesday, which means that I assume DraftKings and FanDuel will be able to adjust. I mean, it's pretty easy to adjust that sort of stuff. You just press a button, slide something around, I'm sure. But there'll either be a 2-game slate on Monday that people can play or an extra showdown slate on Tuesday, which is kind of fun. The idea of playing a showdown NFL slate on Tuesday.
They're going to play Monday or Tuesday, assuming there's no more positive tests.
Yeah, but there could be more positive tests, but they have been through at least one cycle of testing with only one additional positive now.
Right.
So the virus is weird.
I just think back to the Cardinals. Like, it was like every day for 2 weeks, they had one more guy that had it that didn't have it before.
That's true. It's weird like that. It's almost like it's contagious.
It's strange.
Yeah. If I'm glancing away during this podcast, if you're watching on video, my apologies. The Braves are playing the Reds. A noon baseball playoff game takes us back to the halcyon days of NBA playoffs at noon every single day. And maybe we'll get a little NFL at noon. Maybe they'll throw that puppy on at 1 o'clock on Monday to fit in the broadcast window. Who knows? Anyway, Vikings-Texans does appear on track to play.
Yeah.
From a DFS perspective, will you engage, avoid, play it by ear? How will you handle that game?
I'm currently planning on treating that like every other game.
Okay. Frank?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot of players to be excited about here, right? Deshaun Watson had this nightmare of a schedule to open the season, and he's only $6,600. He's the 8th highest priced quarterback, so I think there's a lot of value there, and obviously, you know, Will Fuller at $5,900, like the running backs in that game as well. So, yeah, I'd be treating it normally, and I'd probably be attacking it as well from a DFS perspective.
Ownership could actually be down, right? Because I would think people would because I have to imagine there are some people who set a bunch of lineups on Thursday or Friday, and you double. You know what I mean? Like you're just not like you're not spending your entire professional hour leading up to the 1 o'clock kick diving into the lineups, which means they may be like, I don't want to risk it, so I'm not going to mess with that, right? Maybe not.
I don't think that will have an effect, but it could. It could.
Yeah. The over-under for that game is high. It's like
the people that were, I would just say this, the people who were setting their lineups on Thursday or Friday for a FanDuel contest and not checking back probably were not competing against anybody that was trying to make money anyway.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, but they might be in the millionaire maker or whatever. I mean, you never know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there could be some for sure.
So Vikings-Texans high total. I agree. I think Will Fuller's a great play there. The secondary for the Vikings is terrible. Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller stack will probably, just because Russ and Dak are on the main slate among some other people, will probably and Mahomes will probably be avoided fairly well. So that's not a terrible stack to attack. Let's get to the top total game. Browns at Cowboys. Cowboys minus 4.5. The over-under is 55.5. If you didn't play Cowboys and Seahawks last week, you didn't win any money, Heath.
That's kind of the way that it worked out. And I think it kind of feels the same with the Cowboys this week. The most interesting thing is not whether you play Cowboys stacks, but which Cowboys you're going to stack with Dak Prescott. And I think it really depends on which site you're on. On DraftKings, I'm probably going to play a lot more CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz with Dak. On FanDuel, I'll probably have a lot more Amari Cooper, but still some Dalton Schultz. And Michael Gallup's a GPP play every week. It's just that you can't play him in cash games because he might have 40 yards.
Can I point out that I said Michael Gallup was going to go off last week?
It was a great job by you. I played Michael Gallup just because you said that.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Nice. I did too. I cashed a little bit. I should have done better. I didn't stack enough. I didn't have a Lockett Metcalf stack. I get too far into my head on this ownership stuff, Frank. I'm like, I can't have Gallup, Metcalf, and Lockett. They can't all produce, and then they all produce.
Yeah, it's in the DFS industry. I've seen some people call that the galaxy brain. It's like overthinking things to a T. But yeah, look, you needed that game last week. You needed a bunch of Seahawks, Cowboys, and in this spot, look, it's hard to fade Dak Prescott right now. He has over 450 passing yards in back-to-back games. The Browns secondary is beat up as well. Greedy Williams, Denzel Ward, see if they practice this week, if they're going to play. Yeah, I think Dak, Amari Cooper, obviously in play. I don't know that I would play Zeke in this spot just because I feel like there are a few other running backs. There's a lot of running back value this week, and even Dalvin Cook, who's $200 cheaper. So I don't know that I would be targeting him. I think CeeDee Lamb for sure as a GPP play. Love the Dalton Schultz call. Kareem Hunt potentially in GPP as well, because if the Browns are playing from behind, we probably see more of him, which should lead to more targets. He actually leads Cleveland in red zone opportunities this season.
Oddly enough, and I was not aware of any injury he had. He did not practice on Wednesday. So if he has the questionable tag next to his name and still plays, that will even help drive his roster rate down even lower. So I don't know that there's it might just be a veteran rest day. I don't know, but I did see that he popped up as not practicing on Wednesday.
That's concerning. Zeke, I feel like this is going to be a shootout. I don't know.
I'm going to have a hard time playing Zeke.
Yeah.
Unless Michael Thomas is back. But if Michael Thomas is not back, I really struggle with why would I play Zeke over Alvin Kamara when Alvin Kamara without Michael Thomas is basically like Superman Christian McCaffrey.
That's a good point. I mean, he's got 28 catches in the last 2 weeks?
He's averaging 9 per game.
Their entire offense is Drew Brees looking deep, being too scared to throw it, and then dumping off to Alvin Kamara over the middle. That's all their offense is.
But I'm sure the Lions will figure out a way to scheme that.
Yeah, Matt Patricia's will be all over that. Although he did break the Rams. He did break Sean McVay a few years ago. So that's the one thing he's done.
Yeah.
What do you think about a Baker Odell stack?
I like Odell in this spot. If you're talking about just you want to bring back in this game, if you're playing Dak and Amari Cooper or Dak and CeeDee Lamb or Schultz, I think Schultz, again, is a great play. I think Odell Beckham, as they bring back, I don't think that I could play Baker Mayfield. He's just so turnover prone. I don't know that his ceiling, even if he's chasing points, is anywhere near all these other quarterbacks we're going to talk about, including Ryan Fitzpatrick. I can't believe we're doing that. But, hey, it's week 4 of 2020. But Yeah, I don't mind Odell Beckham, especially at his price. I believe he's like 5,900. That's
Wow.
It's pretty low for Odell Beckham.
It's very low.
Yeah,
If you don't like Odell.
I don't really. I don't know that the Browns can't stay in this game by running. And they certainly can't stop Dallas, so it makes sense to me that they're going to try their best to stay in this game by running. If they fall behind, I think Beckham could pay off. I don't think it's a bad play, and I think a lot of people will put him in their Dallas stacks for sure. I still don't trust Baker Mayfield, and I know what they want to do, which is not throw.
Okay, fair enough. Seahawks at Dolphins. The over-under here, 54.5. The Seahawks are 6.5-point favorites on the road in Miami. Russell Wilson, 7,800. I have to assume that Russell Wilson, having established a 74 touchdown pace 3 weeks into the season, is indeed your top priced quarterback, and probably will be the top rostered quarterback, even in a week when there is a ton of options out there. I mean, it's how they're letting him Lamar is actually the top quarterback on DraftKings, 8,100. Russ, 7,800. Mahomes, 7,400. Josh Allen, 7,300. Dak, 7,200. Do you agree that Russ will be the top rostered guy?
Yeah. I also think I might fade him.
Ooh, spicy.
Is that spicy?
Yeah, you don't think they're going to let him cook some paella down on South Beach?
I think he'll cook and he'll be good. I'm not sure. First off, I'm a little bit concerned about Seattle in this spot, just because 3-0 making literally the longest flight that an NFL team can make. I just don't love it. And I really think Lamar has the bounce back. Dak is, for me, projected for more points than Dak this week. And I want to play some Joe Burrow, spoiler alert. So I think I might fade Russ, which is famous last words.
Frank?
Yeah, no, I could see why. But, if Chris Carson's out, I think that could also lead to more volume for Russell Wilson, which is crazy to say, right? Like, he's on pace for 549 pass attempts, which would be the second most of his career. So, yeah, look, it's dangerous to fade him in this spot. I don't think that I would, unless, of course, you're playing Ryan Fitzpatrick. And it's crazy to say, like, Ryan Fitzpatrick's $5,400. He's cheaper than Tyrod Taylor, who is not playing this week. And I know it seems like a potential letdown spot just because it's Ryan Fitzpatrick, but the
Seahawks defense is awful.
They are allowing 439 passing yards per game.
They've given up like already over 1,000 receiving yards or yards to receivers. It's week 3. Like that's incredible. That's incredible. I mean, like the numbers they're giving up to wide receivers are out of control. So are you stacking Ryan Fitzpatrick this week?
Well, I think Devontae Parker. I think your lineups like start with Devontae Parker this week, which again, it's like I understand we're putting faith in the Dolphins and Ryan Fitzpatrick getting the ball to him, but Devontae Parker has now had 10 days to rest up that hamstring, and he's going up against this Seahawks secondary, which has been atrocious, and he is $5,700. So I think your lineups at the least, start with Devontae Parker, and if you want to stack him with Ryan Fitzpatrick, I don't think it's crazy.
Heath, that feels like a contrarian play you would get down with.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Fitzmagic will be contrarian. I think he might be the chalkiest cheap quarterback. I think he's probably the best cheap play. I agree with Frank on that, that's the problem. A lot of times I can guess ownership by just looking at my projections on Friday. Like whoever the guys I have projected for the most points and the best value are probably going to be the guys who are rostered the most. And so if Fitzmagic's not contrarian, then Parker will have a hard time being contrarian.
Okay. Interesting. Ryan Fitzpatrick, the chalk.
I don't know that, but I like amongst cheap quarterbacks, that would be my guess for this week.
This is a really screwed up year. Like if you fade Russ, do you fade Lockett and Metcalf too?
I don't think I could. No.
Okay. But you're not going to be like 100% Lockett and Metcalf.
No, not at all. And I think it's important to recognize like the way that DK Metcalf is producing fantasy points right now. He is going to have a week.
He's going to have a dud. He has a dud.
Real dud. Like
he's averaging 25 yards per catch.
Right. I still don't think DK Metcalf is a cash game play.
Okay. Metcalf is more than Stephon Diggs, more than Allen Robinson, more than Amari Cooper, more than Cooper Kupp, more than Adam Thielen. He is if you assume that Michael Thomas plays, then Metcalf is the fifth highest priced wide receiver at 6,800, and Lockett is the third highest at 7,000. Lockett feels a little bit safer, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think Lockett may actually be, no, he's about 600 more on FanDuel. So, yeah.
Well, and I would assume that if people get down to their last, when you're finagling those final end of the lineups, Frank, you're like, all right, well, I can either go Lockett or Metcalf, and I can save $200 with Metcalf. Like, you're going to see a higher roster rate for Metcalf, right?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I think most people still realize that Lockett has not only the safer floor, but I think he has the higher ceiling as well. I mean, we just saw it in week 3, right?
Oh, he did catch 3 touchdowns.
100 yards and 3 touchdowns, right? And he plays out of the slot. I know that DK Metcalf did it against Stephon Gilmore a couple of weeks ago, but Xavier Howard is still on this team, and he's still pretty damn good. So I would lean towards Lockett, even if you're just deciding between one of them. And I will just throw out there Mike Gesicki as a GPP contrarian play if Jamal Adams is out, just because we know what Gesicki's upside could be.
I like Gesicki a lot. Yeah,
that's a good call. He is really. I mean, like, I knew he was athletic coming out of whatever crap school he came out of, but I think that you're not a Penn State guy too, are you, Frank?
No.
Gesicki is Penn State, right?
I believe so.
I'm trolling Debo here.
That is a yes.
Okay, I thought so. Anyway, yeah, I mean, like, he had the spark numbers and all that and tested really well at the combine, but the last couple of weeks he has flashed some like crazy athleticism. So I'm down with that play too. Saints at Lions. The Saints are -4 on the road despite losing to the Packers last week. The over and here 54. Alvin Kamara, the top price guy, and man, it is kind of hard to get away from him.
I don't know how you could if Michael Thomas is out, or why you would want to, frankly.
If Michael Thomas plays, Frank, is there a case that Kamara might be even better, if only because there could be less roster rate?
I don't know that he can be better, but I will say I think that he can be sneakier from a DFS perspective.
I guess that's what I meant.
Yeah, I think most people will see, like, if Michael Thomas plays, they're going to obviously, like, lower the ceiling overall for Alvin Kamara. But against this Lions defense, he still might have a massive ceiling. Like, we saw what Aaron Jones did against his defense, and they're allowing, like, over 6 yards per carry. And even in week 1 with Michael Thomas playing, Alvin Kamara saw 8 targets. So, look, he's not going to see the double-digit targets likely if Michael Thomas plays here. Heath, I'll throw it back your way. I mean, you've kind of been off, Kamara if Michael Thomas plays, but I feel like he might still be really good even if Thomas does play in the spot.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel compelled to have him everywhere if Michael Thomas plays. I wouldn't want to flat out fade him, and I would still expect he would be, but I probably would have Zeke projected higher. On FanDuel, Kamara's $200 more than Elliott, so I'd probably just kind of swap to Zeke for the most part. On DraftKings, I'd still want to have quite a bit of Kamara.
Okay. What else from this game? The Saints defense is supposed to be good, but nobody's defense is good, and they got lit up by the Packers on deep balls, which leads me to believe that Matthew Stafford and Kenny Golladay could have a nice little outing here.
Yeah, they're in play. The narrative street play for this game. Every time Adrian Peterson plays a former team.
Oh, that's right. He does score against them.
And we're getting, like, DeAndre Swift is now a special teams player, so that got that out of the way.
Boy, that Adrian Peterson really flipped season-long fantasy leagues on his head, huh?
Yeah. Hawkinson would be probably my favorite Lion.
Okay.
Because I do think, like, they're not going to shut down Golladay, but Lattimore I still think is pretty good.
Okay. Anybody for the Lions, Frank, for you?
Yeah, I like the Hawkinson call a lot. He actually ran 35 routes last week on 39 QB dropbacks. That was a season high for him. And so I think there is a chance there for Hawkinson. I worry about Golladay in the spot because we saw what the Saints did last week against MVS. They basically, like, bracketed him and did not let him do anything. I guess because of that, it probably makes for a contrarian play, but anything like cash related, I am not going anywhere near Kenny Golladay.
All right, what about Marvin Jones? Would you go? I mean, because Lazard had his way through the secondaries, the wide receiver too, I guess.
Yeah, that's not a bad call actually. And Marvin Jones is $4,900, so super cheap. Yeah, I think especially in a GPP, that's not a bad call on Marvin Jones.
The one thing I would worry about too is that I don't think the pace for the Saints is quite as fast as people think. Like I know that the over under here is high. I mean, it's 54 or whatever, but like I feel like the Saints are, even if they bring back Michael Thomas, like they're more than willing to be methodical, run the ball, chew up clock, dink and dunk. And they kind of had to speed up a little bit because the Packers were taking shots, but the Lions aren't exactly this high octane up tempo team either. Might be an under here. Pats at Chiefs. Chiefs -7, over under 53. Heath, are you going to go? You like the Chiefs? They just murdered the Ravens on Monday Night Football. I can't imagine they'll be popular here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I still get a little bit queasy about playing a Bill Belichick defense. And I should have been more queasy about Darren Waller last week than I was because they just completely shut him down. They can't do that to Travis Kelce because obviously what we saw on Monday Night Football, Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. My favorite play from the Chiefs side is probably Clyde. I don't want to play a Patriots running back. I don't mind Cam. He's certainly a better value than Mahomes is in terms of points per dollar in my projections. But I just don't love this game. And it's 50, like it's a 53.5. How many games do we have this week with an over 50? Like
this is the highest
7?
totals I've ever seen in my entire. I've been covering the NFL for 10 years. Highest total week I've ever seen.
Yeah. So the 53
did you guys see, by the way, the article from Kevin Seifert at ESPN?
No.
So in its entire 100-year history, the NFL has never opened a season on the kind of scoring terror we've seen in 2020. And the reason he points out is that they have, through the first 48 games of 2020, officials have thrown flags for 95 offensive holding penalties. That is 59% fewer than in 2019 when they were operating under instructions to increase such penalties, and 45% lower than the previous 5-year average. At the same time, flags for defensive pass interference have risen 22% from 2019, the most of the league 3 weeks since 2001. And despite the increase in pass interference, the league's current average of 13.63 flags per game is its lowest through 3 weeks since 2001. In other words, Walt Anderson, who is now deeply embedded in the VP of the officiating office, has said, he's the new VP of training and development, has basically said, we're we're making football more fun because these guys didn't get preseason. Let's stop calling hold. Like, don't call ticky-tack holds.
It's not more fun for defensive linemen.
No. And you will see like clips all the time, like a defensive lineman breaking through and he's being like gripped by 3 like linemen from behind. Like they just don't call holding as much anymore.
It's great for fantasy. I mean, more points, more fun, right?
Yeah, that's great. But I mean, I'm just saying, it's like, I mean, does it alter your approach to certain games where you think?
What I wrote in this week's quarterback preview, because I was noting that we got 5 quarterbacks averaging 30 points a game. It's taken 25 fantasy points to be a top 12 quarterback basically every week. Used to be that 20 was awesome. 20's been about 18th every week. So like, it's one of those rising tide lifts all ships type of thing. Okay. I don't know that it necessarily like the one thing I would say is with defenses, you're basically just looking for teams that might get a bunch of turnovers because nobody's getting the bonuses for low score totals, low yardage totals, unless they're playing the Jets.
Right. And I don't think we're going to see a massive correction in point scoring or penalties called. Like, I think this will be, they could flip the switch at some point, but I don't think they're going to do it. People are loving football. People are watching a ton of football. No one is complaining about the refs, with a rare exception of like a couple of primetime games. Like, I think there's a good chance they're going to let the guys play for a while. All right. Anybody else from this game, Frank, that you want to add to? Sorry, I didn't even.
No. It's I think if James White is out, you can look back to Rex Burkhead. Obviously, he's like sub 5K on DraftKings. If you do want some cheap exposure to the Chiefs, Sammy Watkins is 4,400. He's playing a ton of snaps. He plays in the slot as well, so he's been dominating there. I agree with Heath. I do like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I worry a little bit about Travis Kelce. In his last 4 games against the New England Patriots, he has been held under 70 yards in each of those. He's only scored 1 touchdown total in those 4 games. So I worry a little bit that Belichick, again, creates a game plan to try and stop Travis Kelce. And I think Cam Newton, from a GPP perspective, does have a lot of upside. We saw, if he's chasing points, we saw his upside in week 2 against the Seahawks. Nearly 400 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns as well. So only from a GPP perspective.
I also think that Cam is a good play here in the sense that the formula for beating, look, the Chiefs have figured out how to beat the Ravens. You get up on them, and then you make Lamar work for it. The formula for beating the Chiefs is there. We've seen it over the last 2 years, is you have to turn it into a slugfest. You have to pass. You have to rush Mahomes. You have to minimize their shots down the field. You can't blitz him, and you grind out long drives and make him all right, if he doesn't score on a possession, it becomes that much more important. We saw it with the Texans last year and the Colts last year. So I think that's what Belichick will try and do with Cam. I would assume he's not going to engage in a shootout because that doesn't seem very smart.
Right, but I think the question is, that's great if it works early in the game.
Right.
But what do you do when you're down 17-3 in the second quarter?
You have to wing it with Cam.
Right. So, yeah, I like Cam. I think people will be off Edelman after last week. And it's weird. We were talking about this earlier today. Have you looked at the average depth of target for Julian Edelman and N'Keal Harry?
They're running go routes. Right?
No. Edelman's is 12.7 yards per target, which is enormous and much higher than it's ever been.
He's usually 5 yards per target.
N'Keal Harry's 6.3.
Oh, that's crazy.
They just swapped their roles or something.
That's very bizarre. Edelman is he set a career high in receiving yards with Cam against the Seahawks. It's insane.
I don't know what it means, and maybe they'll change it this week. I don't know.
The Patriots are not a team that, and this applies over the course of history, but certainly applies right now with Cam at quarterback, not a team you can predict what they're going to do from a week-to-week basis.
Correct.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll run through the rest of the games. All right, Cardinals at Panthers. Just keep going with these over-unders that are over 50. Vegas is trying to catch up. I don't know how you can take some of these games. I don't know how you can take the under. I just don't know how you can bet on the under of some of these games because they're just going to be scoring. There's not a whole lot of defense right now. DeAndre Hopkins has been outstanding for fantasy owners. If you drafted him in the second or third round, kudos to you. You are rolling. And Kyler Murray has been awesome. Even though he had a bad game against the Lions, he still finds the end zone every time. Heath, is this a stackable game for you?
It's absolutely a stackable game. And I think Kyler is going to be chalk, obviously. I kind of like Teddy a little bit on the opposite side of that, just because I said, I think Fitzmagic's going to be the chalky cheap quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater's 7th in the NFL in passing yards for the season. He's 7th in the NFL in yards per pass attempt. He just hasn't scored any touchdowns. He's got a 1.9% touchdown rate. No quarterback since 2000 has thrown 500 passes with a touchdown rate below 2%. That's going to regress. He's going to throw more touchdowns. So I will go right back to DJ Moore. I don't dislike Robbie Anderson. Mike Davis is probably going to be a little bit chalky. What's his price on DraftKings? He's 6,100 or 6,200 on FanDuel.
I believe he's 57 on DraftKings.
So that's not as good of deal, but I still kind of like it.
Yeah, I don't see how you could fade Mike Davis. He's definitely in play. Regardless, cash, GBP doesn't matter because, 9 targets with the full PPR on DraftKings last week for Mike Davis. He had 21 touches. He was used in the red zone a ton. So I think he has to be in play. DJ Moore let us down last week, but, if you look at what the Cardinals have done against number 1 wide receivers, they have struggled. Kenny Golladay had a big game his first game back, 57 yards and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin over 120 yards and a touchdown in week 2. It just depends, who is the Panthers wide receiver 1 right now? Because Robbie Anderson is seeing a lot of targets as well. So I think both of those guys are in play, but I do think that DJ Moore's ceiling is probably higher.
I would anticipate that you see Patrick Peterson on Robbie Anderson. I don't know if that's good or bad. Patrick Peterson our coworker Patrick Peterson hadn't had 2 outstanding weeks or anything, but DJ Moore is just not a matchup you would see him on a shadow situation.
More, but again, this is another team. It's kind of like what I was saying about the Patriots. DJ Moore is running a lot more deep routes than Robbie Anderson is right now. DJ Moore is responsible for 30% of the Panthers' targets and 49% of their air yards. Everything to Robbie Anderson's underneath. That does not make any sense. But that's what they've done so far. I do think with Hopkins, if there's no Michael Thomas, And like, even if Julio plays, they are not on the main slate. Even if Devontae Adams plays, they're not on the main slate. Like, there's a 4 or 5 point difference in projections between DeAndre Hopkins and any other wide receiver on this slate. It's really hard not to play him.
Carolina's secondary, not as bad as people think, but their defense is atrocious. You can move it on them. Yeah. And I think maybe the Chargers not doing that could sort of fool some people into thinking Carolina's frisky. Like, Arizona should be able to light these guys up pretty easily.
Yeah.
Okay. Kenyon Drake, interest? No interest?
I want to like Kenyon.
He is
on paper, it's a fantastic matchup. He's 6K on DraftKings as well. The problem is he's not seeing a lot of targets because Kyler Murray, whenever anything breaks down, he just takes off and runs. So he's not targeting Kenyon Drake much. And then whenever they get down near the goal line, Kyler Murray just runs it in anyway. So you're taking away target volume and you're taking away high value touches in the red zone from Kenyon Drake. So it kind of limits his overall upside. He's playing 68% of the snaps. So that's not a bad thing. It's a really good matchup, but
he has been so disappointing.
Yeah, I don't think his upside is very high because of Kyler being his quarterback.
Right. And like, this is going to sound ridiculous, but how could you play Kenyon Drake when he's only like $300 more than Mike Davis?
Exactly.
That's not ridiculous, but it's not wrong. Like Mike Davis had, and the thing about Mike Davis's game last week against the Chargers is you could chalk it up as an aberration and maybe be a little concerned about Curtis Samuel being in the backfield some. But as soon as Christian McCaffrey got hurt, he had 8 targets the week before. So, I mean, like, clearly they're going to use the running back in the pass game. I mean, Teddy's, not he doesn't chunk it downfield very efficiently. Maybe that's the concern with DJ Moore, is that Teddy doesn't throw downfield very well. If you're running deep routes in a Teddy Bridgewater offense, you're going to need to get lucky or get a coverage bust, probably.
Yeah, that could be true.
Bills at Raiders. I mean, imagine traveling back in time and telling somebody this over-under is 52. Throw you in an insane asylum. Or maybe we're all living in an insane asylum right now anyway, and we just don't realize it.
Is the Bills' defense good?
No one's defense is good. No one's defense is good.
Okay.
I think defenses will start getting better in like week maybe 4.
I'm not ever going to tell people to fade Josh Allen again. So we'll start with that. I really like Devin Singletary. Assuming Zach Moss is not back.
At practice.
I thought Moss was at practice on Wednesday.
Like limited, hopefully.
I think he's just back.
Okay. Well, then I don't like him that much. The Raiders have given up more fantasy points to running backs than any other team this season.
Their defense is bad.
Like I said, play Josh Allen.
I'm seeing on Twitter full uniform practice for Zach Moss.
See, I don't know that the Bills will slow down Las Vegas. Now, I believe Pat Thorman, who does the Snaps and Pace article at Established to Run, pointed out on Twitter that secretly the Raiders are like eat up a ton of clock and don't offer a lot of pace from the other team.
Yeah.
But it does feel like the Raiders have sort of tricked whoever they play into being in a shootout.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, I guess you're talking about playing Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow, but we saw what the Bills did once they got their linebackers back to Tyler Higbee.
Yes.
Like, I just don't know. Like, unless you're playing Josh Jacobs, I don't know who you want to play from the Raiders. Ruggs and Edwards are likely out.
Darrell Henderson still ran the ball really well against.
He did.
With those 2 linebackers back. So Jacobs a go, Frank? No? Yes?
Yeah, I just think the other running backs that are in that range and just cheaper options, right? Like we just spoke about Mike Davis. Like, why wouldn't you just play Mike Davis in a full PPR for much cheaper than you would Josh Jacobs? I like the Hunter Renfrow call. He is sub 5K, and the Bills have struggled against some slot receivers. Cooper Kupp just had a big game in week 3. Jamison Crowder, although it was on a broken play, did score in week 1 as a slot receiver of the Jets. So I think Renfrow is in play here. I'm a little worried about the Bills in this spot. I think it could be a letdown spot for them coming off big comeback win. Well, I guess the Rams came back and then they fought them off. But traveling across the country, I'm not going to say fade Josh Allen, but like I'm a little worried about the Bills.
Okay. Josh Allen just runs in the red zone, though. Like, that's the problem. He's like Kyler Murray. you can get a kind of a bad game from him. He's still going to score because he runs in the red zone.
Yeah, and apparently now he's a fantastic passer too. Without
completing 70% of his passes, what the hell is happening? 2020 is screwed up.
At 9.1 yards per attempt too.
It's wild. And the Raiders won't slow him down.
3 straight games over 300 passing yards after having 0 in like his first 2.
Is he going to be the most owned quarterback this week?
I think it'll be Russ.
Okay. I think so, Russ.
Russ and then Allen.
Unless it's, yeah, I don't know. Like,
no, I mean, we'll get to Lamar in a second, but Lamar is going to be
right. And that's the thing. There's so many options there. If there's nobody over 15%, do we really care who's the most rostered?
Do you think that we talked about that before? That's the number for quarterbacks when we're looking at who, like,
that's the number I use. Like if you're below 15, and really maybe 10 would be a better number to use. But if you're below 15%, you're not really chalk. Like, yeah, maybe you're the most popular quarterback, but if it's all spread out, 85% of the people are playing someone else.
Right. Well, you're still only, like, if your quarterback is the nuts, then you're still only against 10%, 9%, or 9.9999% of the field or whatever it is. I mean, it's like you're not having to leverage against the entire field. Like if it's everybody split up. Okay.
Yeah.
Diggs.
Yeah.
I mean, an Allen Diggs stack has been pretty good.
I don't think the Raiders secondary is good. And Diggs leads Buffalo with 25% of their target share. Like, he's been fantastic. Leads them with red zone targets as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think people will see that little, like, 3, that third next to Diggs, which is like the Raiders are the third best team against wide receivers, but I think it's very misleading. I don't hate that at 6,800 for Stephon Diggs.
Okay. Jaguars at Bengals. Again. Go. The over-under is 49. What? I mean, how are we here?
And this is like, oddly enough, a game with an over-under of 49 is probably the sneaky stack of the week.
Ooh, talk to me.
Like I prefer Burrow to Minshew, but they're both in play, and Minshew maybe even more so after he completely let everyone down in doing his best Andy Dalton impersonation, really. And the great thing about that is when you do that in primetime, when everyone's watching, no one can hardly stomach to play you the following week.
True.
So I like both quarterbacks. I like Tyler Boyd. I will probably run a little bit more AJ Green out there one last time. If DJ Chark's back, you play him. Another guy who kind of crapped the bed, Laviska Shenault. I wouldn't mind going right back to him, and both running backs are in play.
How did Laviska Shenault not hit his over last week?
It was disappointing. They have, and I hope this changes. I think it has to change, hopefully soon. He was not really in their third down package, and he was not really in their red zone package a lot of the time.
It's a problem.
Yeah, he needs to be in one of those, or both, preferably.
He's too big. He's too talented. Like let him work. Let Laviska cook. Are you bringing it back with any? Jaguars?
I'll play Chark if he plays.
Okay. What do you think about this game, Frank?
I'm not as optimistic on it, I guess. Like, I don't think both defenses are good. I love James Robinson in the spot. He's probably my favorite play out of anyone in this game, and I guess that's the reason why you might not want to play Josh Jacobs is because James Robinson is $300 cheaper. And he's just looked fantastic, and he's being used more in the pass game now as well. Cincinnati allowing over 5 yards per carry, 153 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. So, I think this is a great spot for James Robinson. And I think the overall theme of this week, and we've talked about it a lot, is that there are going to be a lot of quarterbacks to play. Like, I don't think there's any obvious play. Like, last week it was Dak, it was Russell Wilson. There are so many fantastic quarterbacks on the main slate this week that I think your point that none of them are going to be over 15% roster rate this week is a valid one.
Okay. All right. Giants at Rams. Again, over under 48. It was friggin' ridiculous. The Rams are minus 13. This is the survivor pick of the week for me. I think there's not many games you can look at on the slate where you definitively know that you feel really good about one team winning. This is one of them. And I think how is Darrell Henderson not a smash button? I should have smashed him last week. I loved him last week against the Bills. They played the linebackers. I got scared. I changed some lineups. It cost me. I hate when I do that. I always do it. I should just get drunk on Saturday night, set my lineups, and then not mess with them on Sunday like I did last week. But I screwed around.
Disclaimer, folks listening at home, you should not get drunk on Saturday, set your lineups, and not look at them on Sunday.
That is true.
Okay.
You can get drunk on Saturday, but just look at your line. I just tweak too much. I think I might have had like a Millie Maker winner, like honestly, and then like took it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows? Anyway, Henderson, I feel like is a smash factor here.
I like him.
Oh, okay.
I'm not quite as enthusiastic as you are.
Why not? The Giants are terrible. They're going to run the ball. Makers might be back, so he might not be that highly owned. I think McVay's just going to give him the rock. He's their best running back.
What's his price on DraftKings?
$5,800.
Okay, that's a little better on FanDuel. He's more expensive than Mike Davis. He's more expensive than.
He's 100 more than Mike Davis on
Kareem Hunt. He's more expensive than Devin Singletary, which he might be out now. But yeah, I don't dislike it, and he's been very good. I also wonder, is Cam Akers coming back?
He could be. He could be. I'm not worried about Cam Akers. Bring it on, Cam Akers.
I'm not worried about Cam Akers being better than Henderson or taking his job. I'm worried about him taking 6 touches in the first half before they figure out who has the hot hand this week.
That would be problematic. If Cam Akers comes back and is running really well and Sean McVay just gives him the rock and Darrell Henderson is the third down back for the day, that would be problematic. But I think of the group where it's like Kenyon Drake, Devin Singletary, Joe Mixon, Darrell Henderson, and then Mike Davis, I think there's a good chance that Henderson will be the highest scoring, the best leverage play there because I think he'll have the highest score in the lowest ownership.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad call. I just do worry about Cam Akers being – like if Cam Akers is out, then I agree with you. I think this is a great play at $5,800. I mean, back-to-back games, right around 120 total yards for Darrell Henderson. He's by far looked like the best running back on that team, and he played a season-high 49% of the snaps in Week 3. Outside of that, I don't really love this game overall. I mean, maybe Evan Engram, if you're just like looking for a contrarian play. The Rams just allowed 3 touchdowns to Tyler Kroft and Lee Smith of the Buffalo Bills. So I think if they're going to throw the ball to anyone, the Giants are going to have to throw. I could see Evan Engram involved, but of course I love the Rams defense as well. Yeah,
Rams defense is a good spot here.
And I kind of like at least on FanDuel, Golden Tate's 5,300, and I presume Darius Slayton's going to have Jalen Ramsey on him for most of the afternoon. And so Tate targets went up last week to 7. I wouldn't be surprised if they go up a couple this week as well. I think Tate could be a good punt play at receiver.
Okay. Ravens at the Washington football team. Ravens minus 1,300, over under 47. Again, these over-unders are bananas. Lamar Jackson, the highest priced quarterback at 8,100. Hollywood Brown, a massive disappointment. I lost every bet on the Monday Night Football game. Every bet except for the over that I pushed because I bought half a point. So fun night on Monday for me. Climbing out of a hole. Need to hit the Millie Maker to salvage the week. I don't mind a Lamar Jackson, Hollywood Brown contrarian stack, like a sort of a let's get right against a bad team.
Frank, do you think that'll be contrarian?
No, I think a lot of people are going to go back to Lamar Jackson.
You think so?
People are going to think the exact way that we are thinking right now.
I do have a very chalky brain, so it's possible that that's like.
Yeah, like I'm probably going to have 20% of Lamar Jackson. He's my highest projected quarterback on the slate. So I think like one guy who might be, I don't know. I would not be surprised if people just go right back to Andrews and Brown too. Brown was the one I wasn't sure. He might be a little bit contrarian.
Okay. So you think Lamar is just going to be as popular as ever? I'm going to disagree. And I mean,
okay.
like you guys are better at this than I am. So I mean, I'll take your word for it, but I just think that you're building a lineup and you can go with $8,100 Lamar Jackson or $7,800 Russell Wilson, $7,400 Mahomes, $7,300 Jared Allen, $7,200 Dak, or $7,000 Kyler. And while Lamar has a great matchup because the Washington football team is terrible, you can save up to $1,100 on quarterbacks who all of them run, all of them put up huge numbers, all of them have great stack options, and they all have great matchups this week. Like I just think Lamar. I don't think people are going to pay for Lamar.
I think that is probably sound logic, but what if other people have the same exact logic?
Again, like I might just be chalky as hell. Like I don't know.
It makes sense. And again, like just because he's the highest rostered quarterback this week, does it really make a difference? Because again, I think that we are going to see, a symbol, like there's not going to be just one quarterback that's like far rostered than the rest.
I want to clarify. I don't think Lamar Jackson will be the most rostered quarterback. Right. I just think he will be in that group of 4 or 5 that is in the 10 to 15% range.
Okay. If you go Lamar, Andrews, Kamara, and Hopkins, that leaves you 38.80 to play with on DraftKings. I'm just saying, but like those are like, my point is like, would you rather go with Lamar and be able to, like, you're going to have to struggle to fit Kamara and Hopkins in, or you can go with Kyler and then you get your Hopkins stack and then add like Darren Waller at 5,200 and you've got 4,260 left to play with for the rest of the positions. I'm just saying that's a huge amount of wiggle room.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we will see.
So are you selling us on playing Lamar or on not?
I say play Lamar. Yes. I think that people will be like,
you're trying to convince us that other people will not.
I think that the general public will veer away from Lamar more this week than you would anticipate.
Okay. I hope you're right, because I'm going to play Lamar.
Yeah. I think people would be like, did you see Monday? I mean, Monday night is fresh, man. Maybe I'm the idiot. Maybe I'm what did they say in Rounders? If you can't see if you can't spot the square in the room for the first 30 minutes, you're probably the square. Or it's not square.
The mark. Yeah.
If you can't spot the if you're at a table for an hour and you can't spot the mark, you're probably the mark. Been here for a while now. Colts -2.5 at the Bears. The over/under is 45. Allen Robinson, the top price player, 6,700. Jonathan Taylor, 6,600. Nick Foles is higher priced than Phillip Rivers. This is outrageous. It's preposterous.
Pretty good Phillip Rivers impersonation in the second half of that Bears-Falcons game. Just throw it up and pray it goes through their hands and to your player, and it did.
It did.
I
don't think you should actually play Phillip Rivers at all because I don't believe that he has attempted. So week 1, he attempted 36 passes. He has not attempted. 46. He has not attempted more than 25 cents. And that, I believe, is what the Colts want to be. So I would not invest personally in the Colts passing game here.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Frank, thoughts on Bears, Nick Foles, Allen Robinson stack?
Not very excited about anybody on the Bears side. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how good the Colts defense actually is. I mean, they've had some pretty favorable matchups, obviously, against like Sam Darnold and the Jets. So I'm trying to figure out like how good their defense actually is. I think on the other side, Jonathan Taylor is obviously in play. He is 6,600. He didn't necessarily smash like he was supposed to last week based on the game flow, but I would imagine this game being a little bit more competitive, and Chicago is actually allowing like 4.9 yards per carry to opposing running backs this season. So I do like Jonathan Taylor. If I'm looking at one Bear, and this is going to sound gross, Jimmy Graham.
You're going to say Jimmy Graham, aren't you?
Jimmy Graham.
Oh, boy.
He had 10 targets in week 3. He's being used in the red zone. He scored 2 touchdowns. He ran 44 routes, 28 of those in the slot. He leads Chicago in red zone targets. Nick Foles likes to use the tight end. It's gross, but Jimmy Graham?
Jimmy Graham.
I like the way you said it with a question mark.
Yeah. Anchorman style. I got a hypothesis, and I don't know if it works because the teams that they played are terrible, but what if the Colts defense is good?
We thought the Colts defense was really good before the year.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I thought it was going to be good.
Really not good at all against Jacksonville.
I think that is hey, it's week 10. What the hell happened in week 1 throwout game? I don't think you can look at that game as something we base our fundamental decisions on at this point, seeing what we've seen from Jacksonville in different spots and really moving forward. Like I just don't think that's them.
Okay.
So I'm off the Bears this week. No thanks.
I probably like Montgomery the best of the Bears. And I do think that like it will be interesting to see what happens to his target share without Tariq Cohen.
Okay. Chargers at the Buccaneers. Buccaneers -7.5. The over under 43.5. Now we're in the dregs. The Bucs, Heath, they do have a good defense. I feel confident in saying that. They're locking people down. But will they be able to lock down Austin Eckler, who's revived since Justin Herbert entered the lineup?
Yeah, I like Eckler okay. I like the Bucs defense might be one of my favorite plays in this game. But yeah, I think Eckler is he's definitely my favorite Chargers play.
Frank, are you interested in Keenan Allen at all, who has also seen a robust target share, which I'm sure you have more interesting numbers than I do on since Herbert entered the game?
Yeah, he has a 37% target share over the past 2 games with Justin Herbert, which is just ridiculous. Completely revived his value there. And I understand Tampa Bay is a pretty good defense, but DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson both went over 100 yards against them in week 2. Tim Patrick scored a touchdown last week as well. So based on the volume, I don't hate Keenan Allen. Same thing with Austin Eckler. I mean, his targets have been way up with Justin Herbert as the quarterback. And I think Hunter Henry, I mean, the targets have been quite consistent for him as well. So I really don't hate any of the pass catchers here for the Chargers. And I will just throw Mike Evans' name out there because Chris Godwin expected to miss a couple of weeks. Scotty Miller is banged up. Justin Watson is banged up. Are they really going to throw the ball to Gronkowski again? I think just based on volume, Mike Evans is probably in play.
I agree, except why in the world did he get 2 targets last week?
4 targets, 2 catches.
Oh,
2 touchdowns.
How did he catch 2 passes?
I think it's probably game flow, right? You were destroying Denver for the whole game, basically.
Yeah.
And they had a bunch of short fields too.
Yeah.
Denver was turning the ball over. It looked like that game was going way over after the first half, and then they just didn't score in the second half. Mike Evans probably won't be that highly owned. That is the lowest total on the board, 43.5. That one's going under too. I think the Chargers are just methodical.
Yeah.
They're going to be careful with Herbert in this spot. I think they'll dink and dunk to Allen on slants and Eckler out of the backfield. In DraftKings, I think both guys are firmly in play just because they're going to catch a ton of passes. And then I like Evans. I do think I would worry that if the Bucs get a lead here, that you would be in serious danger of any second half action.
Right.
Okay, Sunday night, Eagles at the 49ers. 49ers -7. The over-under is 45. Obviously, this is not the main slate, but for showdown purposes, we'll discuss it. Carson Wentz, man, he stinks.
I dropped him in a lot of leagues, overnight waivers, and I would not play him even in the showdown slate. I'd rather play Nick Mullins or Jimmy Garoppolo. Like Zach Ertz and Miles Sanders, very good plays. Greg Ward, be a great value play, but I don't trust. First off, we should be fair to Carson Wentz and say this is an awful situation with most of his offensive line hurt, most of his wide receivers hurt, and now his best tight end hurt.
If you want to get out of doing the podcast, you can just rip Carson Wentz, and Debo just won't invite you back.
I was just defending Carson.
I know. I'm saying if you do not doing a very good job, if you want. No, but I agree. It's not fair for him. It's a bad spot for him. And this is even worse because the 49ers are, while without several players, they still have a good defense.
Yeah. This is just not the type of game that I'm generally playing on a showdown slate.
Okay.
It's not very exciting at all from a fantasy perspective. Just trying to figure out who is going to play in general. Is George Kittle going to be active? I mean, we'll know by the time the information comes out for the showdown slate. But if he's not, I think Brandon Ayuk is probably in play. Just came off the best game of his young rookie season. See what happens with the running backs. If there's no McKinnon, if there's no Mostert, then obviously Jeff Wilson is involved. He was used a ton in the red zone. They started to throw the ball to him last week as well. Miles Sanders, he touched on him. I think it's kind of obvious. It just comes down to what the injury situations are for both teams.
Yeah, it's a good point. In fact, this might even be – go ahead, Heath. Sorry.
No, I was going to talk about something completely unrelated from this game because I was tired of it.
No, in fact, I don't think it's appropriate to talk about it on a Wednesday going into a Thursday because there's so many people hurt from it that everything you say could end up being completely wrong. Don't play Dallas Goedert.
No, don't do that. You got that one right. So Lamar Jackson, Alvin Kamara, and Joe Mixon. You've got Andrews there for the stack and Logan Thomas on the other side for the comeback.
Mm-hmm.
Bengals defense paired with Joe Mixon for the stack. You can still play DeAndre Hopkins, N'Keal Harry, and Gabriel Davis, who had 80 yards last week with John Brown out.
That's a nice little.
The Lamar Jackson stack works just fine.
Okay. You had Kamara and Hopkins.
Okay.
All right.
And a bunch of really terrible players.
Was that FanDuel or DraftKings?
That was DraftKings.
Okay.
We're calling a lineup with Gabriel Davis in it just fine.
Yeah. Listen.
Well, but that's all right. So see, but I think you make my point here, because I think people will look at that lineup and say, okay, I can pivot off of this and go to Russ and Greg Olsen or whatever you want to do, or go Russ and Tyler Lockett, cheaper at tight end, and then you can end up beefing up that other wide receiver spot. That's sort of my point, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought I did a good job. I thought I'd get some accolades.
Yeah, I think you did a great job. But I think the average person will be more inclined to play Dak, Russ, Kyler, or whoever and beef up the wide receiver spot than to roll with Gabe Davis.
Just 81 yards, 4 catches.
I'm not saying that he's not good. I'm just saying sometimes you gotta, take your shirt off, walk down the hall, look in the mirror and say, am I playing Gabe Davis today?
As soon as we get done here.
The test is true time. All right, Heath or Frank, any beer this week that you tried?
I was going to let Frank go first, but I went to Matthews Brewing on Saturday night. Great place in Lake Worth. Sat outside. Had Florida hop juice and Florida haze, 2 of my favorite beers that they make. They're both fantastic if you ever see them in stores.
So I am on the sour beer kick. Over the weekend, I went to a beer garden. I had the Brooklyn Sour, the Brooklyn Bel Air Sour, but a few other local things around here. KCBC, this is a brewery in Brooklyn. Birthday Zombie, fruited sour. Awesome. And then other half, I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's pretty actually well known. Like they distribute around the country. Laid Back Sour Peach Mango IPA.
Excellent. I had some New York beers actually over the weekend. I had a variety pack from 6 Point.
Love 6 Point.
Yep. 6 Point's pretty popular out here. Blue Point, which is like deep in Long Island, is pretty popular. They have a pinstripe Pilsner for my Yankees fans out there.
Never invited back. I had some Hop, Drop, and Roll from Noda in Charlotte. Gold medal award winning IPA, classic West Coast style. It's on sale now here everywhere. Oh, you know what I had? Oh man. Oh God. No, I tried it and I'm drawing a blank on it. Oh my God. I know. I went to Crafty Brewing to meet some friends on Friday. Outdoors, socially distanced mask, of course. And in there, I looked up and I said, oh my God, they have Bearded Iris from Nashville on tap. And I got I can't remember whatever their normal IPAs, and I bought a double IPA to go. Bearded Iris, outstanding. If you haven't had it, I highly recommend.
Outstanding.
Yes, some of the best IPAs I've ever had. Okay, that's it. That's the show. Although I will point out that according to John Breach, and Paul Kaharski, Monday night looking like Steelers-Titans.
Let's hope. Sounds great.
All right. That's the show. Thanks for joining us, Frank. Great first show. Heath, always a pleasure. Talk to you guys next week.